Mercury is officially retrograde. Put on your seatbelts and get ready for a ride that you've been on 100 times, okay? You'll be fine. There's nothing to fear. And especially if you have retrograde planets in your natal chart, retrograde seasons are the times where you thrive, okay? So let's put the collective panic to the side. But yeah, make sure y'all are just double checking everything. You know, doesn't hurt to give it a once over. But yeah, everything is always moving in your divine favor, okay? All right, we're on day 29 of the December challenge. And we're doing Venus overlays, okay? Today we're doing Venus in the 8th house. I do have Venus in the 8th house natally, so I just feel like I've been downloading messages for this one, okay? So let's dive into it. It really feels like that moment that they meet is this once in a lifetime opportunity. It's this time and space that was gifted. I feel like the house person sees this opportunity to meet you and interact with you as a moment in time where they have to decide, do I make sure that the good things that happen to me in my life are embraced to the fullest degree? And with this thought, the house person pursues the Venus person. Now, when I say pursues, it's because they've already met you. So essentially, the Venus person is kind of the one making that first step. It's either like they've been noticing you, and to them in their like life, it's a natural progression to be like, all right, let me reach out. The Venus person isn't too cool for school though with this overlay. Like the thing that they're picking up on, they can tell it's big, right? They can tell it has potential. And this is, I'm talking about the energy that they're picking off of you, the thing that makes them notice you. But there's kind of also a little bit of denial that the Venus person is living in. They're like, yeah, you know, it seems like that, but you know, we're not gonna rush. We don't even know the person. Let's just say hi and see what happens. So there's a lot of knowing for the Venus person that happens subconsciously. And then there's also a conscious storyline that they're living on. So they kind of introduce themselves, and then the house person is kind of like, I need to squeeze this moment for what it's made of. And they lay it on thick. Like, this now is where some people will say like, oh, Venus in the 8th house synastry overlay? You mean the love bombing overlay? And for the Venus person, it works out better than expected, because they're like, oh shit, like, you're into me. I thought you didn't even know my existence. And the house person, of course they've noticed Venus before this. They're just also having their own denial thing where it's like, oh, like that would never happen. That would be a miracle. So they don't allow themselves to believe it can happen, and then the Venus person says hi and they're just like, okay, now I can fully invest in this storyline. So they're both giving it your best go, you know, best foot forward on both ends. But after a while, the house person, the longer they stay around the Venus person, the more they want to impress them. They feel this deeper connection forming, and they start to get scared about the skeletons that they have in their closets. The closer they get to Venus, the more the house person is saying, I love this deep connection that we're forming, but in no way can I allow them to see my flaws, to see the things I'm ashamed of, to see the things I still have guilt attached to. These are what the house person is thinking are the ugly sides of them. You know, it's essentially their shadow side that they haven't yet fully embraced for themselves. If they can't love it for themselves, they're never gonna believe that the Venus person can love it for them. So the house person starts to bury all the things that they don't want you to see even further. And in order for them to do that, they have to start to play roles in order to mask that truth. Essentially, the house person is playing tricks on you. They are misrepresenting themselves in some way, whether that's what their financial situation is like, which is very likely. The 8th house is, you know, dealing with resources. Depending on the sign, you know, it could be misrepresenting where they live, who their friends are, their current relationship status, sexual history, sexual preference. It could be misrepresenting how they feel about you. The house person kind of starts to walk this line where they want to have their cake, which which is like the deep, raw connection between you guys. And they want to eat it too, which is not having to share everything that they deem is important in their life. It does sound kind of bad, right? And it is. But we have to remember that the 8th house is about traumas, right? This whole scenario of essentially manipulation that's carried out is not always conscious. Depending on whatever else is going on in the natal chart of that person, the house person can be very conscious of what they're doing. And then to the other extreme, they could be completely subconscious of what they're doing. So it's a range, right? And really, it's unfortunate, but this moment is the trigger moment for them to learn how to handle these parts of themselves that they've never fully really loved for themselves. And it's almost like, you know, how can you fault someone for truly being innocent of not knowing how to deal with a situation? So with this 8th house overlay, it's really about maturity as well. If you're not equipped to handle these things coming up, that's where this overlay can get a bit toxic. However, if you do see these things coming up, another kind of scenario for how this overlay plays out is where there can be full honesty in saying, I can see that you deserve more, and I have to be honest with you that I know that I'm not in a position where I can meet those needs and those standards at this moment. However, I want you to take a chance on me. And I'm gonna work hard every day to prove to you that I can be the one you need. That's the real deep love of the Venus in the 8th house overlay. You know, the idea really is that you put yourself forward in raw vulnerability and yet still ask for love, even if you feel like you may not deserve it from that person. That is the scariest ish that you could do. I'm telling you. At the same time, you know, it's very important that we each know what we deserve, what our worth is, so that we can use our own discernment to know, is this something that I can accept? Or do I deserve more? This is on the Venus person too, right? Because when the hiding starts to happen, when the house person starts to feel like this is getting really deep and I'm scared about what they're gonna say when they see or know this about me, the Venus person picks up on that. So the house person isn't really being slick as they think. The Venus person picks up on it, and it's really up to them whether they choose to ignore the signs or address them. The Venus person sometimes may feel like it's not their place and they want the house person to kind of organically just be honest. But in this overlay, I believe, you know, it's very important for the Venus person to straight up acknowledge, listen, you know that we have this deep connection. I'm sure it's not going to come as a surprise to you that I am picking up things about your energy. And if the house person gets defensive, you're done, okay? I don't care how good this connection feels. You have to know your worth. You have to walk away. But as always with the 8th house, if there can be true honesty here, you can really start to discover how deep love can really be between two souls. When you talk about true unconditional love, I have to see all of you. We can't pretend that it's not there. We can't pretend that it's a small issue. This isn't, you know, a play. This is real life. And this one, you know, you really learn. You have to sometimes just rip that band-aid off. Natally, like, that's what it feels like. I'm just constantly going through life just ripping band-aids off, because natally I understand that, like, this is for my better. It hurts now, but if I waited, it would have hurt worse. When it's someone else's Venus falling in your 8th house, no one likes someone else coming to interject how they're dealing with their healing process. So people snap, people get defensive. People turn to the worst sides of themselves. But it's not about judging. Again, it's just about knowing what are you willing to accept. In a relationship aspect, there is a lot of questioning of worth. Am I worthy enough for this person? The house person may think you're better looking than them, you have more money than them, you have a better education than them. You know, they feel like you have one up over them and that they're just like the trash in the street. But that's not at all on the other person, you know. Those triggers are personal and for them to deal with. You know, no one wants to be looked at with pity. You know, there's a lot of ego in this one as well. But they don't want to go unnoticed either. In a friendship, the jealousy here can be real. And especially in female friendships, a lot of times people just want things to stay good. And that is genuine. However, there comes a point where the longer you hide the other side of it, the more that genuineness is distorted and just becomes a front. Can't ignore that there's this jealousy here. Sometimes the feeling of competition, as much as you want to stay on good terms with this person, doesn't change the fact that you just have to acknowledge when things are starting to get triggering. The Venus person is ready to just go ham, go all in. They're ready to give this their all. They don't care how ugly it is. They're ready to love it. They're ready to pour into it. But it's not their job either to be like this sacrificial lamb. You can still love someone unconditionally and say like, my boundaries, we need to pace this. The pacing here, that's what really is the problem, because you guys just feel so intensely drawn to one another that it's hard to hold back. Like, you're saying I love you in 7 days, immediately attached at the hip, immediately like, this is the person I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with. And it doesn't feel good to hold that back. It feels good when the love comes up and you feel it coursing through your veins. You just want to express it. That's the energy of love. It's really important that these people learn how to pace themselves. Otherwise, emotionally, you can get to a place where when these things come up, it's like blindsided and you don't really process it with the clearest mind. Sometimes, the other person will be upfront that they're not worthy of you and they're gonna work hard, but then they also start to milk that and take that to an extreme to where that starts to become like they're guilt tripping you. But there is a healthy line. This overlay does not automatically mean that you guys are gonna have some kind of toxic relationship. Acknowledge the truth, handle it maturely. If you need help, seek help. And if your conscience is clear, you can really, really understand what love is here. And life will never be as it was. Heavy stuff, man. But that's all I have for that one. 2 more days left of the December challenge till we get to January and really get this channel started. Thank you all so much for being here with me. Can't wait to give you all the content, all the tea on astrology. And yeah, as we're approaching the new year, take it slow, but keep it real.